Now I would like to address Alice and Michael with a few questions in order to find out a bit more about how customer service has evolved at Edwardian's hotel and hospitality business over the last few years, and yeah, how you manage to engage your guests in a way that turns them into happy and loyal customers. And I'm sure you will be introducing us to Edward, your award-winning chatbot as well. Well, the first question I would like to ask you, I mean, providing guests with a VIP service surely requires a quick and competent response to any kind of inquiry. How do you ensure that your guests receive the personal care and attention that they expect?
Well, I think it's really important when we are servicing our guests that first and foremost, we know roughly what kind of query they might have. That always helps. And then when we find out that information, getting them through to the right person with the right information and empowering whoever it is that is answering that query to be able to answer it without referral, answering it quickly and efficiently for the guest. So within the contact centre, what works really well for us is determining before the guest comes through to an agent what their query might be, and we do this via the IVR, as Steve pointed out. A lot of people are using that, and then once we know that information, we can make sure that it's going to go through to the appropriate agent, and our smart routing enables that call or that interaction to go through to the right person. And then when that person does receive it, finding we give information to that agent about the caller as well. So if we recognize the caller, which we do via the phone number recognition, we have our integration with our CRM Salesforce, which will then pop information to the agent about that specific guest. So we're able to know the name of the guest, if they're associated with any company or travel agent, if they've stayed with us before, when they stayed, what rate they booked on, what promotion they might have booked on previously with us as well. And all of that information really helps us to personalize the call. And even if we don't know who that person is because they haven't interacted with us before, at least knowing the type of query that they are calling us with, we're then able to give specific information to the agent that is going to help with that query as well. So they can answer without referring, without popping the caller on hold to find out information. It's all there in the screen in front of them. One of the other fantastic things about Enghouse is as well, we're given a full 360 picture of all of the guests' previous interactions with us as well. So we can see when they called, what their query was when they last called, and who they spoke with as well. So finding out as much information about the guest and having that available to the agent, I think is really key and important for us to then be able to deliver that personalized service and answer that query as quickly and efficiently for the guest as possible.
Thank you, Alice. You mentioned guests calling a few times. Is the phone really still the most popular communication channel for your guests to contact you, or have you perhaps seen a shift to other channels in recent years?
We definitely have seen a shift, and that's actually one of the reasons why we chose to invest in Enghouse as a contact center solution. We previously had a call center, but we saw very much that guests were looking for other ways of interacting with us. Over the years, our call volumes have decreased in the way of more online interactions. I think, as Steve pointed out, those quick and simple requests where guests can self-service themselves have become a lot more popular. So in Enghouse, we're able to handle not just phone queries, but also SMS, text queries, chat, and also email, all within the one solution as well. Obviously, we were dealing with email previously, but having it within the one solution means that you're able to escalate between the different types of interactions really easily as well. So then the guest has the choice based on their own preference, but also at which stage that different channel is going to be most appropriate and effectively service the guest in the best way as well.
Understand. That's interesting, Michael. I mean, since you've been with Edwardian for so many years, have you seen any particular communication channels that have evolved over the last few years or perhaps months?
Well, definitely evolved over the last few years and really accelerated over the last 18 months. So as you have mentioned, we introduced Edward, our AI virtual host, in 2016. And it started taking off gradually. So back then, there was still a distrust of chatbots in general. They are still pretty useless in most organizations because they haven't got the actual built-in AI that they claim they have, and also they haven't got the data that AI requires to learn. So one of the most important things that I would suggest in being able to achieve everything that Alice has been describing here is to start with data, because whatever you're going to show the agents so that they know who the caller is and anticipate their needs and appear as if they know them, and with time they actually start to really know them, is data. So you have to collect data, you have to segment it, analyze it, so that we really provide that personalized service. We know this person always asks for a room with a particular view. We know this person prefers a specific room in a specific hotel. They shouldn't have to tell us every time. We should know that information. Now, one person cannot know all the information about every guest who stays with us, but we enable that by giving them the information. So that's on one hand, just to add to what Alice was saying, and the technology we like to work with is the technology that makes that possible for us via APIs and connections to existing CRM systems, etc., and also technology that enables us to take information from, in this case, Enghouse, and push it to the other communication channels that we have in place. And this is where it was very seamless, with these guys with Enghouse. Basically, the API was up and running in like half a day. We were seeing data flowing between our data warehouse and Enghouse and vice versa. Communication, back in 2016, we introduced Edward, the chatbot, and we noticed that it came out of a need of initially giving the guest the ability to check in online rather than have to come to the desk, because a lot of people want that type of self-service, and that number of people is growing. And so we did that, and we noticed that people who received a text message from us with a link saying to them, click on this link and you'll be able to check in online, started replying to that link and asking questions. So this is not something that we have imposed on our guests. It's clear that our guests were asking for this type of communication tool. And out of that, Edward, the chatbot, was born. And I can tell you, I'm looking at some stats here, even 2020, where, we've hardly had any hotels open. We have received over 36,000 communications between guests and Edward.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what are these inquiries? What are the sort of typical requests that Edward has to handle?
Absolutely. So these inquiries are inquiries where the guests don't really need to call the contact center. This is what we mean by self-service. Things like, is my room ready? They don't have to pick up the phone and call a contact center. It's doesn't add any value to the guests to hear that from a human being. And also it ties up resources when those agents could be doing something much more important than just answering questions like that. What's my room number? Do you have a car park, etc. So these are the type of inquiries where guests want information, want it quickly, and doesn't require a human being to make an effort to do something for them. This is perfect channel. So what's my room number? Is my room ready? Does my booking include breakfast? And quite often, most of this information is after they have already had the communication with the contact center and they made the booking, etc. Now they need the pre-arrival, during the stay, and after the stay service. For that, the first stop is the Edward, the chatbot, and then Edward works with his colleagues in the contact center. So if Edward is unable to answer the question or provide a particular service, we'll reach out to Alice's team.
Okay.
And they will take over and give the correct answer or provide the service. And each time Edward learns from those interactions. So
Okay.
when we started in 2016, he could deal with something like 900 different topics. Today is over 1,600 topics. So this is why, like you were saying before, this ability to have an omni-channel communication, customer service is very important these days.
Yeah, I mean, that was very interesting what you're saying, but I could imagine some of our listeners are kind of raising their hand and saying, well, you know, I've used web chat in the past before, and, you know, I got frustrated because my query didn't get answered quick enough. I had to wait a long time, and in the end, I wasn't able to resolve the issue. How do you respond to that? How do you make sure that when your guests answer questions via Edward the chatbot, that they do get the relevant response in a very quick and prompt fashion?
Well, Edward takes about 3 seconds to answer, and
Wow.
It's not, now it has grown into a tool that not only answers questions but does things for you. So you could say, Edward, can you please add breakfast to my room? And Edward takes 3 seconds to do that and update your reservation. You know, what's the phone number? Because now I want to call the contact center. 3 seconds. Here is the phone number, and it's evident with the feedback that we have had on things like TripAdvisor. There is some beautiful feedback there. People think Edward is a human being, you know, and as you can see there, you know, Edward kindly secured me a late checkout, was keen to help with anything, and he has become like a member of Alice's team, a member of the contact center team, works together with that team, assists them and assists the guests, and they help Edward as well continue to learn.
So it yeah, becomes obvious that self-service really is an important requirement for your guests nowadays to interact with you.
Absolutely.
And be able to self-serve. And I mean, you've given us a couple of examples already. How do you make sure that those self-service interactions stay personalized and are customized to the individual's needs?
Well, this is what we mean by the data. So the same data that is available to our contact center team, the same data that pops up in a screen in Enghouse when a customer calls, Enghouse passes the call ID, the phone number, to our CRM system. Our CRM system says, okay, I know who this person is, and then passes important information to the Enghouse system. So that screen pops up and you can see this guest is whatever, VIP, works for this company, books via this travel agent, average spend in our hotels so far is X amount, lifetime value is so-and-so, and that information is very quick to enable that contact center employee to know what type of caller we are dealing with, how to direct the conversation. We have got behind the scenes in Enghouse APIs that says, okay, if this criteria matches, then we want this call to be directed to this group of agents because they deal, for example, with our VIPs, for instance.
Okay.
Edward has access to the same information, so it behaves in exactly the same way, just like any other contact center agent. It looks at that information, it digests it, and then it decides on how to provide a service to that guest.
And you both sort of touched upon Edward's ability to learn as well just now there. Could you maybe go into that a little bit deeper and tell us how you would use Edward to analyze customer intent and find out why your guests are contacting you, and how you then use that information to enhance the service that you provide?
Yeah, so a very simple, I'll give you a very simple, there are so many examples, but I'll give you a very simple one that pops into your head. We send out confirmations of bookings. We send an email, here is your confirmation, a picture of the hotel, confirmation number, somewhere in there, dear Mr. Blah, blah, we look forward to your confirmation number is, your arrival date is this, you have your booking includes breakfast. First question they ask Edward is, does my booking include breakfast?
Okay.
So now we're saying, does anybody really look at these confirmations that we send out? If they do they read far enough to see what the booking includes? And if they don't even know that the booking includes breakfast, is breakfast really something that is influencing the decision making of these people to book in the first place? So then you start looking at that. Who are these people? How did they make the reservation? Did they book themselves or somebody else booked for them? You analyze that, and then you make some decisions, like, for example, should we continue to have this rate include breakfast or not? The confirmation that we send out, should we not bring that information further up so that people see it, because people don't like to read a lot of text and go all the way down? So this is a small example. And then we get the AI to learn as well. So you have got 100 people arriving, 50 of them don't have breakfast included. So Edward would send a message to those people and say, by the way, your booking doesn't include breakfast. We have a special offer if you wish to include breakfast for your whole stay. And then we monitor how many of those people, what's the percentage of people who say, yes, I'll have it. Please add it to my, and then once you get that, you start then zooming in on the profiles of those people who said yes, and then see the others who didn't say yes and try and analyze why. How can we encourage the others to also say yes, and learn at the demographics, where they come from, how they made the reservation, and then new decisions are made based on that. And Edward continues to learn and continues to upsell and so on.
That sounds super interesting. So how do you measure the success of your service offerings? Are there specific KPIs that you report on, and have you seen improvements?
Oh, huge improvements. NPS, I know just in, I'll go by 2019, it increased by about, if I remember rightly, by about 4 points in 1 year, and it was increasing year on year. We noticed that the average spend in the hotel increased. So people who used these self-service tools, for instance, their spending was between 10% and 50% higher than people who didn't have an interaction with the self-service tools and with Edward. In one hotel, it was literally double. So people were spending twice as much when they had this, because the tool is upselling to them, using the data, looking at the in-house data for the calls that they have made, when they called, etc. Did they send a text message? Using all that information to make upselling decisions. Basically, we have got lots of KPIs, average room rates, and cost savings, and so on, everything you can think of. And yes, the results are fantastic, and also a lot of very coveted industry awards that we won every single year since 2015 have been very, very encouraging and telling us that we should continue to innovate in technology.
Wow, that's yeah, sounds very encouraging. Alice, you looked as if you wanted to add something here, or?
Yes, I was just also going to say one of the other things that we'd introduced in 2019, and this goes to Steve's slide that he presented in regards to emotion, empathy, and the moment of truth. One of our other success measurements is any audits that we conduct as well. And we moved away from the traditional tick box audits of, has the agent used the guest 3 times? Did they tell you what was included in your room rate? And moved instead towards experiential assessments, so that when we are audited or we are having that feedback, it's all in regards to that emotional feeling that is produced as well. And we saw fantastic results in those audits of surprising, delighting, and feel satisfied. And that's a new way that we've chosen to measure, and that's been hugely successful on that emotional impact that we are having on the guests.
That's very interesting, and because you just mentioned emotional impact as well, that leads me to another slightly different question. With the recent restrictions that we unfortunately had to endure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, how did you maintain high levels of service while working remotely, and how did you support your home-based agents?
Well, we were really fortunate that we moved over to the Enghouse solution at the very start of the pandemic, which made remote working a lot easier. We were able to deploy the agents and support them from home really, really quickly, which was obviously really important because none of us were given any notice that this was going to happen. And it was the first time our agents were working independently in their own space. We'd never ever done that before. Very much an open plan office environment that we used to working in. So the system is very, very good at providing a view of what's happening in the contact center to the supervisors and the team leaders in the team, so they can see who's logged on, how long they've been logged on for, what interactions they're currently engaged with. They even have the ability to monitor those interactions live as they're happening, which was super important for us, because whereas usually you might be able to put someone on hold and ask a quick question, that ability is completely gone when you're working remotely. So the supervisors could listen in on any calls in that remote environment without the agent being aware if need be. If they needed any assistance, they can whisper and support the agent without the guest being aware of it. And also, if need be, they can take over the interaction entirely. So it's completely seamless from the guest point of view, but from an agent's point of view, they do feel supported, even though they are at home sat in their kitchen by themselves. We also have the vocal coach capability that runs alongside those calls, which is real-time voice analytics. And that was very, very good for the agent to be able to self-monitor their calls, because it gives you live feedback as you're interacting with the guest. It's not distracting at all because it's super small in the side of your screen, but it can monitor things like stress levels of the guest. So if the call is going slightly awry, it can alert you to that. If you are speaking over the guest and the interaction is very one-sided, it will let you know that. Also, again, with working remotely and everyone's on their own Wi-Fi, it can detect signal quality and call control. So all of that stuff, very important to make sure that we were maintaining the high levels of service that we used to in the office environment.
So I think it would be a good time to maybe share some tips and best practices on the subject. Perhaps Alice and Michael, would you like to start off and maybe share some advice on how to get started?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the audience is absolutely right, because, you know, as I've said, I've been doing this for 24 years. I have been to hundreds of these technology conferences where we see a lot of these tools available, but the biggest barrier is the data to start with, because a lot of these tools need data in order to enable that kind of personalized service.
As I work in operations, for me, it's all about the people that are using that technology. So making sure that they find it easy to use, that it's not cumbersome to them in their day-to-day. You could introduce something absolutely fantastic. It could have all of the information in the world in it, but if the team don't like it and they don't want to use it, then it's going to have absolutely no impact on it. So that's why with all of the technology that we've introduced, we get regular feedback from the teams. So we make sure that any struggles or concerns they're having, we are adapting and making sure that they can use it to the best of the ability. And also with Edward as well, it's on a mobile phone in their pocket. It's not difficult for them to use. So the buy-in from the employees to make the most of the solutions that we're offering, for me, is super, super important.